Bitter Netanyahu set to ruin Trump's landmark deal as Israel signals resistance to key provisions involving Lebanon. Israel digs in and refuses to exit occupied Lebanese territory, raising fresh questions over the deal's durability. Will Mojtaba retaliate if Israel's actions in Lebanon are seen as undermining Tehran's regional allies and interests? A deal meant to calm the region now risks exposing deeper cracks in U.S.-Israel ties and competing strategic goals? Donald Trump's Iran deal came under pressure on its very first day as Israel and Iran clashed over the Lebanon provisions. On June 18, the IDF said its troops would remain inside southern Lebanon despite commitments outlined in the U.S.-Iran agreement. The IDF released a map showing Israeli forces holding positions extending up to 10 kilometers inside Lebanese territory. Israel said its soldiers remain deployed in a designated security zone and will continue removing threats near the border. The position appears to conflict with the U.S.-Iran memorandum, which calls for an immediate halt to hostilities across the region. The agreement specifically references a permanent end to military operations on all fronts, including the Lebanon theater. Iran warned that Israel's continued military presence inside Lebanon could effectively undermine or nullify the agreement. Full implementation of the memorandum is a precondition for future negotiations, Iran's foreign ministry told Al-Akhbar. Ismail Baghai warned that a final agreement can only be reached if all parties fully respect the memorandum's provisions. Hezbollah also signaled it has no intention of accepting what it described as a one-sided ceasefire arrangement. Amid continuing IDF attacks, the group responded to recent drone strikes and cross-border military operations. The IDF acknowledged that recent Hezbollah attacks killed one soldier and wounded several others during clashes. Hezbollah believes the U.S.-Iran deal has improved its strategic position and strengthened its leverage, experts said. The group also sent a message to the Lebanese government that disarmament remains firmly off the table. Israel, however, continues to insist it must retain freedom of action against what it views as Hezbollah threats. Iran's initial agreement with the United States has opened the door to significant economic relief, drawing attention to how Tehran may use new financial resources. As billions of dollars in potential investment and sanctions relief come into view, focus is shifting toward Iran's most influential regional allies. Under the 14-point memorandum, Iran could gain access to investment, sanctions relief, and eventually some previously restricted financial assets. Reports suggest Tehran may seek to direct renewed financial support toward Hezbollah once additional funds become available. Regional sources claim Iran has assured Hezbollah that assistance would increase as economic restrictions are eased and resources begin to flow. Hezbollah suffered significant losses during its conflict with Israel, weakening key parts of its military and operational network. The group's political influence and organizational structure came under intense pressure throughout the war. Analysts say fresh funding could provide Hezbollah with resources to rebuild and strengthen its presence across Lebanon. Hezbollah's media office says Iran's support will continue regardless of the details surrounding sanctions relief or access to frozen assets. For decades, Tehran has remained Hezbollah's principal political, financial, and military backer, helping sustain the group's regional influence. U.S. officials have warned that any future economic relief must not be used to finance armed proxy groups or regional militant networks. Washington says any violation of the agreement's terms could trigger consequences and jeopardize the benefits outlined in the deal. These latest remarks have further strained already fragile ties, signaling that Trump is willing to air grievances in public and that the once tightly coordinated partnership is now under visible stress. Trump again lectured Israel over its Lebanon attacks, reiterating that he is unhappy with the scale, pace, and political impact of Netanyahu's campaign against Hezbollah and Lebanese targets. Speaking from the conference stage, Trump directly criticized Netanyahu's handling of the Lebanon front, arguing that Israel's approach has been excessive, too slow, and damaging to broader U.S. diplomatic efforts. Beyond Lebanon, Trump revived his complaint that Israel allegedly pulled out of a planned strike on Qasem Soleimani, using this to suggest that Washington has repeatedly carried the heaviest risks while Israel has stepped back. He reminded his audience that it was the United States that ultimately carried out the 2020 drone strike that killed Soleimani, reinforcing his narrative that American action, not Israeli participation, delivered the decisive blow. At the same time, Trump said he agreed with Netanyahu's own admission that the US is the big partner in the relationship, making clear that Washington expects its preferences to be respected when it comes to regional wars and peace deals.
Nobody hit Soleimani. You know, when I hit Soleimani, people thought that was the biggest thing to happen in the Middle East for 50 years. That was the biggest event. He was the boss of Iran and respected, but he was a mad genius. He was a genius, the father of the roadside bomb. When you see young men, and in some cases women, mostly men, walking around without legs, without arms, with a face that's been blown to smithereens, it's Soleimani, 95%, 96.2 they say or something, 95%. That was Soleimani did it. Happened to come from Iran, and I blew him up. You remember that? I blew him up in the Valley of Death. He got off his plane and we followed him, and in all fairness, because they've been wonderful to me, Israel, but they didn't want to do that attack. They were all set the night before the attack. They informed me they didn't want to do it, so I had to make a decision. I made the decision to do it. But it was a joint venture, as we say in the real estate business. That was a joint venture between Israel and us. We studied it for a month. We knew what plane he was going to be on almost a month before. He only traveled on commercial airliners, the big ones with lots of people, because he knew we wouldn't shoot him down. He's very smart. But we knew he was going to be on that plane. We followed him. And then Israel informed me that they won't do it. And I had to make a decision. I had some very good generals, and not the ones you see on television, very good. And I want to thank also Pete Hegseth and General Raisin Kane, who's phenomenal. Okay, these guys are phenomenal. They can't be better. But I had some good generals, and I said to him, well, if Israel's not going to do it, we're all prepared. Do we do it? Do you like doing it or not? He said, sir, if you want to do it, we can do it. How well? We'll do it just as well or better. We can do it ourselves. We don't need anybody. So we took out Soleimani. One of the biggest events to happen in the Middle East, maybe ever, but they say 50 years, they say 100 years. I was with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He said it's maybe the biggest event that has ever taken place. Nobody could believe it. So that's when it started. It didn't start like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago. And Obama wouldn't do it. What Obama did was he did the JCPOA. He loaded up a plane with $1.7 billion in green cash from banks all over Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. They were stripped of all their cash. They had no cash to do payrolls. It all went into a Boeing 757, a wonderful plane, and they flew it to Iran. And they gave it out to people. They bribed people. They thought they were going to get it done. Then they gave billions and billions of dollars after that. And they got a deal that was a road to a nuclear weapon. I get so angry, I guess. I'm allowed to get angry. When I watch the Democrats, they talk about it all the time. We had this deal done. You had a deal that was going to give them, legally, a nuclear weapon. And if that happened, Israel would have been blown away. And in all fairness to Bibi Netanyahu, who happens to be a good man, gets a little excited sometimes. But he happens to be a very good man. We've had an amazing partnership. He's been an amazing prime minister. We have a little dispute over Lebanon. I say, you can do a little softer touch, Bibi. You don't have to knock down a building every time somebody walks into it that's from Hezbollah. But it's been an amazing partnership. But he will say, we're the big partner, and he's the very small partner, and that's true.
Relations have taken a sharp dive since Netanyahu ordered new strikes on Lebanon on June 14th. A move that clashed directly with U.S. efforts to lock in a truce and finalize memorandum with Iran. Those attacks landed just as Washington and Tehran were finalizing their memorandum of understanding to end the conflict, making Israel's actions look like a direct challenge to U.S. diplomacy. Once the deal was announced, Israel quickly asked Washington for a copy of the memorandum, seeking to understand exactly what had been agreed between the U.S. and Iran behind closed doors. The U.S. initially turned down that request, deepening Israeli frustration, before Trump later revealed that Washington had eventually sent a copy, though by then the political damage and mistrust were already evident.